We have a question here about how do I answer people regarding blessing a child rather than baptizing them? I think within this question, we need to take just a step back and realize that there's this tradition within older traditional Christianity to baptize babies. And the reason I say it this way is I didn't know people do this till I was 17 or 18 years old because I didn't have exposure to it. I really only got to know some of these things when I met my wife, who grew up a little bit traditional in a church and so on. And yeah, I had to learn a lot of stuff about Christianity that I didn't know previously. So I grew up with you bless your child, you pray for your child when he's born, you dedicate your child to God for sure, but you don't baptize a baby. And the reason why, it's funny that you have to explain something that is unbiblical and try to explain the biblical side of things. But yeah, the reason why we don't baptize babies and why we don't believe in baptizing babies is because what we read in scripture about baptism. Baptism is a very, very, very simple idea in the Bible. And baptism is about a faith decision that you make. If you believe in Yeshua, you baptize. So we see in Matthew 28, verse 19, that we should go, make disciples, and baptize them, and teach them everything. It's coming to faith, bringing people to faith, then baptizing them, and then teaching them the way, teaching them how to walk. So when we read in scripture about baptism, there's not the idea of baby baptism or infant baptism, as it's called. So to give a bit of an example of what baptism should be, there is a great prerequisite condition, if you may call it that, for being baptized. You read it all throughout scripture. It's very common. And that is, baptism may only be done if there is faith in Yeshua the Messiah. That's it. The Christian baptism may only be done if there's faith in Yeshua the Messiah. So in Mark 16, for instance, Mark 16, verse 16, we can read from verse 15. Yeshua said to them, "Go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned." Very clear, very simple. You need to believe and be baptized. So not be baptized as a baby and then sometime in your life realize what you believe. Baptism comes after this faith decision that you make in Yeshua the Messiah. The same for Acts 8. You read verse 36, somewhere in there, you will see Philip with this Ethiopian man. And in verse 36, they're on their way still on this chariot, and they came to some water, and this eunuch said, "See, here is water. What hinders me from being baptized?" He's asking this question: is there a prerequisite to being baptized? And then Philip said, "If you believe with all your heart, you may." And then he answered and said, "I believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, the Son of God." And then they got off and they stopped the chariot first, and they got off, and Philip baptized him. First faith, then baptism. Infant baptism doesn't make sense. Within the sense of scripture, it makes no sense. Even if you want to say that infant baptism replaces let's say, circumcision like some do. It doesn't. Baptism doesn't replace circumcision. The circumcision of the heart replaces physical circumcision. You are now born again into being a child of God and being part of his family. You're not born into the covenant. My children, they are, I don't know, 6th, 7th, maybe many generations of Christian. My father was a believer. My grandma were believers, Christians. Before them, they were all beautiful believers. My children are born into my house. That doesn't automatically make them believers in Yeshua the Messiah. They need to grow up and have faith in him and be baptized. That makes them part of it. Not because they were born into my house. The old Jewish way of circumcising your child as part of the covenant, that's a different promise that God made towards Abraham. We are now born again into a covenant with God, not born into a family as the Jewish people did it. So yeah, all over, faith, then baptism. Not baptism, then faith. And that really throws out the whole infant baptism idea. We can go to Acts 18, verse 8. Then Crispus, the ruler of the synagogue, believed on the Lord with all his household, and many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed, and they were baptized. Very, very simple idea. Believe, then you are baptized. So if you don't baptize your baby, then you are on the right way, because dedicating your child to God, blessing your child, thanking God for a child, that is biblical for sure. But baptizing them is not in the Bible. So I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. And if you want to explain to somebody why you don't baptize your baby, but rather dedicate them, just share this video with them. May you be blessed, and shalom, shalom.